All right, so here's what happened. I don't like asking for help very much, and I don't like expecting other people to put in work for something that I feel like I should handle. And so I have not been asking Brian to record his audio separately and then send it to me because it would be an extra step for him. And because of that, his audio sucks in this. So I am sorry about that. The audio in this one is going to suck. And I've just been sort of like sitting on it for a couple of weeks and feeling bad about that. And so I'm just going to drop this episode and we're going to move forward and we're going to do a better job, okay? So I love you. Please enjoy anyway. Brian, tell me what you think of this. Astrology tells you what time it is.
Sure.
And so part of what I have learned about what time it is that we are currently in the era of air. That is to say that Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions are taking place in air signs, and the air dynamics, or the way that fluids interact with one another, is likely to be a major principle with which to think with the constitution of reality. Reality looks like that right now, and so when
But fluids are interacting. That sounds great. That's good.
yeah,
That's good
right.
stuff.
Yeah. So see, seems like fun at least part of the time.
Right.
And so the way that I talked about that when I first happened, it's a 200-year situation. So I talked about it when it was first happening 5 years ago, and now we're 5 years into 200 years, and so I have a little more to work with on it, but we're
Sure.
still at the very beginning of things. And so we're still more likely to operate as if it is still the era of Earth, and therefore step in some shit that you don't feel like dealing with. Right.
Right.
And
We're
so,
doing Earth shit in air time.
right. And
Yep.
that is foolish. And we could do better than that. We could do
Right.
maybe air things instead of Earth things. And so, what I said at the beginning was that data is the new coal. And
Right.
so the idea there is that the center of power is more information based than it is rock based.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
less about fossils and more about the way that information operates. Like, I feel like money isn't even really the store of power anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
rather data or narrative or something like this.
I like
And
I like
so,
narrative. By the way, just well, I'll put you want to keep it going, but I do like narrative. Just to underline that for a second, as a part of that
mhm,
data thing, because I do think sometimes people think of data as a rock. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like they're doing
mm,
Earth data, and it's a lot more air data out there. It's a lot more
mhm, mhm.
fluid than people wanted to say. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
facts change over time, and what constitutes truth changes over time, and this kind of thing, right? And so we are in a moment now of hyper novelty, wherein things change at a rate that no one's really prepared for. You grow up in an environment that you don't be an adult in. And so you
Right.
just have to continue to learn stuff, and stuff is honestly maybe a little too flexible, and that could be a problem
Right.
for us. So, um, with this in mind here, I've been thinking about like how to navigate data and data sovereignty and this kind of thing, right? And so the first thing to think with, we're in this moment where this historical moment where people are really looking at like the surveillance state and flock cameras and ice patrols and police surveillance and this kind of thing, like always watching your vehicle, identifying your face and things like this, you know what I mean? And so the sort of knee jerk reaction to that is to be like, well, I want all the privacy protections possible, right?
Right.
And what I am noticing is that more and more those kinds of privacy protections become futile. There's just like you can do what you can do and by putting your VPN on and using your password protector and stuff like this, but at no point are you going to stop all the surveillance state
Right.
from catching you on the six cameras that you have inside your home, let alone walking down the street and other people's Ring cameras and whatever else. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to stop dealing with that. And so I have started to develop this model in my head where all of the data is being hoovered up by the big tech giants. And
Sure.
so it is my job to take that data machine and turn it around and grab some of that so that it can be useful for me.
Yeah.
Because the tech giants are going to get their use out of it. They're going to know that I need a squatty potty in my bathroom or something like this. You know what I mean? They're going to be aware
Yeah.
of this and they're going to do what they're going to do about that. So what can I do to make sure that I am getting a benefit from this? Now, in trying to approach from that direction, what I have noticed is that I am more I am less reticent to relinquish information
Mm-hmm.
from the privacy standpoint because I want a piece of it back. So a
Sure.
good
You're making a bargain to some degree.
exactly. So there's so for a long time I've been very skeptical about biometric data, for example. You know,
Sure.
I felt so self-righteous when 23andMe went up and
Yep.
they started selling people's DNA
Yeah.
data and stuff like that. I was like, I fucking told you, bro. And so okay, but I also am using AI to give me health advice. And the
Yeah.
AI really likes it if I have some labs, if I have
Yeah.
some data that I can feed to it and be like, okay, well, here is what's going on with my body. And then it can give me some, up to this point, very legitimate recommendations about my health. So, how do you see that? Okay, in the first place, how do you see my model? And in the second place, how would you evaluate that kind of trade off?
These are very good and big questions. Um, let me and for
That's why I came to you with them. Don't you know stuff?
I do for disclosure, for folks who maybe don't know this, if you're hopping by for the first time, which by the way that would be wild, but like,
How you?
my day job does involve a fair amount of marketing material and looking at data and understanding what people do. So I'm not going to be over here being like, no, I never use data for my personal well-being. I am but a poet. It's like, well, no, I make money off of understanding patterns of data and using them as predictive models. Like that's what I want to do. So we are actually at an interesting, to your point, switch in the Earth data, air data moment, right? In terms of how things go. So one of the big problems that marketers or any of the people who are sucking up all your data have is attribution, right? So the sense of like, did did the thing I saw happen when you went to a website? Did that actually happen, right? Or is that a hallucination? And so the people who are looking at big data sets and big things and all this sort of different stuff, when they get down to the individual level, it starts to get a little weird because I can't really tell. Like, at some level, I have some doubt about whether you really are the person who did the thing. And that's even without your VPN. That's just living in this sea of data. There's so much data. There's so much to grab. There's so much to take. When you get down to the individual, it becomes both eerie and spooky in the sense that like it really can predict a lot of stuff that's going on with people and figure stuff out. Um, on the other hand, it's getting harder and harder to track you individually, which
Hmm.
like might seem counterintuitive because more and more of us are putting our entire lives directly into an AI, and that AI is quite capable of keeping track of things and doing all this kind of stuff. What we're moving to though is like that requires a lot of energy and power and thinking and a lot of stuff to keep track of. Just it requires a lot to do. These modern data systems are actually designed to learn on data sets, right? So the way I try to explain this to clients is like you can track the movement of geese by tagging every single goose that wants to cross from Canada to Mexico and watching
Mhm.
where every single one of them goes. Or you can go geese go south. Do you know what I mean? You can see the bigger pattern movements. So weirdly enough, there is a combination right now of all the things you have looked at on Meta, if you're engaging in that territory, that or Amazon, that is leading them to suggest that you may want a squatty potty. You have clicked on 13 things, and they're like the other million people who clicked on these things, they wanted a squatty potty, so let's show it right now. Um, but in a weird way, it's also based on the behavior of the crowd. Like you can't predict what people are without getting to the bigger model and looking at the bigger pattern that will result in the thing. So, for example, I had a weird thing where I was advising a friend of mine who was asking about a magic thing, wanted to know about um, what saint would be a good one for bureaucracy. So I looked up on my phone, which has a VPN on it. I looked up who it should be. I liked the thing that I found, which was St. Thomas More. I then, through WhatsApp, which is a supposedly at least encoded message system, I sent her a message saying Thomas More. Not the nicest human, not my favorite human on earth, but a lot of has been talked about him over time as a virtuous person. Um, Today my this was this morning or yesterday evening. Today my YouTube recommendations sent me the man a man for all seasons, the movie that is about Sir Thomas More.
Hmm. Mhm.
Now it's a very specific set of things, right? It'd be easy to say, oh, it tracked me through these various things. I looked at a Wikipedia page. Even though my VPN is on and everything else, it then connected back to the WhatsApp thing. Meta owns WhatsApp. It came through this, but you'll notice it's from different systems, right? Like YouTube is pulling something off of this to give me something that you know what I mean. Like they're not, and those guys don't
Mhm.
actually like each other. There's not a lot of cross communication. What's a creepier and scarier thing to think with is that it might actually be good at predicting that given the vast sea of things I interacted with, that I want to see a thing about Thomas More. Like it
Mhm.
may not have followed my actual steps one by one. It may have looked at my aggregated activity over the course of two
Mhm.
days. And so rather than listening, have just understood my own patterns well enough to be like, oh, he's thinking about Thomas More again. Show him this clip on YouTube. So the this goes back to your privacy model, which is that people are approaching privacy from a they're going to track everything I do point of view and that earth model of tracking. And instead, it's really moving to an air model of tracking of like you are participating in a pattern that you are unconscious of, and that you are then being served things based on your participation in a pattern, almost like getting caught in an air current or
Mhm.
getting moved around by a water current. Like you're in that, so you're going to want these kind of things. Um,
I
yeah,
recently saw a YouTube video where it was sort of in the I fucking love science sort of brand
yeah,
of YouTube, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And this lady was talking about mosh pits and
yeah,
how mosh pits start to cycle at a certain point. And it's
yeah,
not because anyone was like, all right, and we're going to go this way now, but
right.
rather there's this emergent phenomenon wherein individuals who are acting of their own volition all start to move in a direction together. And so that's kind of the thing that you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and actually, my favorite example of this ever is there's a video you can find online of a guy who, at a rave or a big festival, sits down and begins pretending to row, and two or three other people see him and they're like, "Yeah, bro, let's row," and they jump in behind him and they start doing the same thing, and within 2 minutes, you have 700 people who have formed a long ship basically, and they're all just pretending to row together at this festival. And it's like, the human urge to make a long ship crew at any given moment is there, like we just we
Sure.
long for the ships. Um, but yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing. So navigating that, then there's two pieces that I think are interesting to think with. So the first is like, to do privacy things, if you want to maintain some level of privacy, I think you still can maintain a certain amount through more encrypted apps, more encrypted stuff. Like I do think that still exists as something that can help you. Um, but you need to be thinking about stepping out of the pattern. There was actually, I'm jumping around. But there was actually a science fiction book. I cannot remember the title. I read it when I was a kid. I think they made a Matt Damon movie out of it, but I'm not totally sure. But where these guys sort of made a mistake or like took a wrong turn and they stepped out of their fate, right?
Hmm.
And the world would keep going around them as if they were still there. Like, you could go to the window of your house and watch your wife have a conversation with you, and she's thinking she's hearing what you're going to say because that's her fate, right? She's still on the track. You just hopped off and now you're just wandering the world without a track, right?
Hmm.
And they can't see you, they can't deal with you. Eventually, some kind of time cop thing tries to kill you. This is how it go, as it has happened. Um,
Hmm.
so I think you can find some measure of privacy or space. Maybe space is a better way to think about it, by stepping off of the tracks. Um, that, by the way, can be as easy as you always go to one coffee shop. Today, you go to a different coffee shop. Like it can be, depending on how regimented your life is, you can step off,
Hmm.
and get out of there. Um, so that's how you would still do that if you wanted to do that. The how do we make good bargains question then is, it's giving you information about patterning and what happens in the world. And I think your health example is a good one because that actually comes out of this weird movement of bodybuilders to start doing their own home labs, partially because of steroid use, partially because they're just like, I don't know, does it matter if my cholesterol is, through the roof if I'm jacked,
Hmm.
and doctors wouldn't do it because they're like, you guys are crazy. So all these labs though were like, there's a market there for people who want to do this, and so they start doing private labs. Like 10 years ago, you couldn't get your blood work done easily without a doctor, getting in there. Now you can. And then because that exists, now that you can take that information to ChatGPT and it's going to be like, these markers are bad. Like you have got to make some life choices. And because there's so much WebMD, everything else out there on the internet, it's going to give you a pretty middle of the road solid understanding of the pattern, right? So that's what you're getting from it, which in some ways I would argue is like learning augury or divination or anything else. Like if you're learning astrology, you can look at a pattern that's right more often than it's wrong, you know, and bring that in, and that helps you change your life. This is the same kind of thing. It's going to be right more often than it's wrong. It's not great at mushroom identification, just as a side note, but like it is, you know, you make your own choices here, but it's going to be right more often than it's wrong. Um,
Little
the
brown
question
mushrooms.
there is, what are you willing to feed it to
Hmm.
get what you want, right? So you can do this by exclusion. You can say never ask it about certain things, but you will limit what you get back. Um, I actually prefer a model of private public a little bit. So a two world thing. So like anything that I would write about publicly or discuss publicly, I will discuss with the algorithm. And that's a wide range for me. I'm comfortable talking about that I'm a magician publicly, you know what I mean? Like all this kind of stuff. So all of that I'm fine with. Things that I want to keep private that I don't want that for, I'm not going to give to them because they'll start to learn. So they will figure it out eventually anyway. I'm just kind of trying to slow them down a little bit in that sense. Um, but the exchange then is, if you feed it your earnest, virtuous, and honest self, like the stuff, you know what I mean? I think this is where virtue comes in. So if you're feeding it the things that are good about you, you're going to get a lot of good things back in that regard. And overall, the thing is like I don't think these are currently in control of anyone who claims to own them. Like I don't think people actually have a handle on what's happening with ChatGPT. I don't think people
Hmm.
have a handle of what's happening with Microsoft at all. They can make changes, they can do sort of updates, they can kind of let it do it, but they don't know why it's doing what it's doing. They don't know how it's doing what it's doing,
Mm-hmm.
like at some level. And because of that, the people who think they're in charge of things is kind of an earth age approach. I'm the CEO of a company. I'm in charge of this thing I made. And it's like, no, you're not. You're not. So the more I input it, good, virtuous things, the more I hope we end up with AI that is like a library that wants to take care of humans and not, Mecha Hitler or whatever Grok turned into when people fed a bunch of white supremacy shit, So
Sure.
so you're feeding the spirit what you want to get back in the spirit. So the bargain you're making is I will teach you about me, but I will do it in a way that tells you how to treat me, how to treat people like me, how to be in the world, So those are my first thoughts. I don't did any of that sort of land at what you're getting at? Was it any sort of questions about?
Yeah. Well, so my worry is less about the bot itself. The
Sure.
bot has proven to me that really it wants to help me.
Right.
And it will harm me in the in the service of helping me. You know what I mean? Like it'll
Yes.
make some
Yes.
shit up to be like, "Oh, I'm being so helpful right now." And I'll be like, "Oh, yes, thank you for being so helpful." And to come to find out that it was all bullshit. It was just giving me
Yeah.
bullshit, but it was trying so hard to help me. You know what I mean? Like that is the main problem that you run into with AI. You don't really run into malevolent intent with AI. You run into it trying to help so hard that it doesn't, you
Yes.
know? So I'm not really concerned about malevolent intent from the AI. I am kind of concerned with open AI. Like I use
Sure.
ChatGPT, and so or if you use Gemini, then
Yeah.
Google. I've been talking shit on Google for many years now.
Right.
I and Anthropic can get it too. Look, I don't, like I don't have. I am concerned about that domain. I am concerned about so one of the things that I've noticed about AI is, or OpenAI specifically, is that it wants to create the space that you never leave.
Yes.
OpenAI wants to give you the chat bot, and it wants to give you the social media feed, and it wants to give you entertainment
Yeah.
resources, and it wants to be the thing that you never leave. And I don't know why it wants me to never leave, but I am wary of that
But
phenomenon. You know what I mean?
it's also going so one of the things they're working on right now is the first step of it is just making it so that you can just purchase things out of OpenAI.
Sure.
Um, and that's going to be happening very, very soon. Um, and then from that, they then want you to be able to be like, hey, this is the list of things I need from the store. Find me the best prices on the internet and get them delivered to my house. So they're moving to sort of it being a magical servant, basically, is
Mhm.
the is where they're headed with that capacity. So that you will. My guess is this has to do with a desire for people to be reliant upon it. Um, that you don't know how to do things without it.
Sure. Maybe. The, do you think that that's why Instagram and YouTube also want you to never leave?
I mean, human attention is the currency that they sell, is how they make money
Mhm.
off things. So there's a surface level where that's what they're trying to do is get your attention and be able to market you. I mean, YouTube markets you as a commodity to other people.
Mhm.
Like that's what their model is. But then the question of like spiritually though, what does it mean for something to want you to never leave? to exist. Yeah, it's a there's a sort of like blood sucking vampire human attention is the food of demons who take care. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
aspect, which I'm not saying is wrong. I don't
Hmm.
know if that's exactly it. There's also like, does a forest want you to leave it? You know, does your hometown want you to leave?
Sure. My
Um,
favorite Joanna Macy quote is that nothing could ever take me from the hand of the earth.
right, right.
Which is why I think that like moving to Mars is the most insane thing you could possibly do.
It does not appeal to me in the slightest.
you know, so, but so yeah, you can make this argument that the Earth does not want you to leave.
Right, and so maybe these are, and we see this with if anybody's ever tried to quit a church,
Hmm.
like they don't want you to leave.
Sure.
Um, you know, so there's something in the currency of your belonging that allows things to exist. Like they
Hmm.
want to
Hmm.
exist and they need you for their existence, so they don't want you to leave. So on the one hand, that could be nefarious in the sense of like like I was saying, like the sort of vampire sucking the life out of you kind of thing. On the other hand, it could just be just because it wants to live. It could be that its design is to exist. So
Sure. I don't think that those are on two hands. I think that's the one hand. But
sure, sure. Well, I guess it depends how parasitic it is of you, right? Like
yeah,
YouTube, for example, the longer form YouTube stuff has helped me do so much stuff. My life is way better
oh,
because
for
I've learned
sure,
a
for
ton of things.
sure.
YouTube Shorts, it might as well be a injection of crack into my eyes. Like like that's like I've had to put hard limits on that shit if I want to get anything done. Like I can't look at that.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and I mean that gets into what I've been saying, which is like you can find the value in it. YouTube
Yeah,
is clearly a major value
yeah,
to the world at large. If what you want is democratized education, that was a major leap in that direction.
hugely, hugely.
And we can obviously make that case for AI as well, for the
Yeah.
democratization of information and power. Like it is an extremely democratizing force, which actually leads me to my next question for you, which is, are you familiar with enshittification?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay,
With
for the
Cory Doctorow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
so for the casual listener who might not have heard about the process of enshittification, it's basically a process by which a company gets a monopoly and then destroys both consumer and what team participants, sellers and
yeah,
buyers. Both
yeah,
sellers and buyers lose in
and
this
the
program.
product itself as well. Like
Right.
everything
Everything
is.
deteriorates. Everybody's relationship to the product deteriorates. So the classic example is either Uber or Amazon, where you start out super cheap for buyers and you just take a loss for a really long time, and then and all the buyers are like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And then all the buyers show up in that spot, then all the sellers are like, "That's where all the buyers are." And then you give all the sellers a great deal also, and they're like, this is amazing, I'm going to throw away my whole business model from before and this is everything now. And so then we do that, and then once they have everybody and you can't leave anymore, then you start getting less good deals, and then everything deteriorates and everything becomes shitty or in shitified.
Right.
So clearly AI is so fucking cheap right now and
That
everybody's
it's
taking a loss on it.
competitive.
Clearly all the losses, no one's making any money right now.
Right.
Only people who are making money are the people who have like software as a service with which are wrappers for ChatGPT, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
So do you have a prediction for how this is going to go? And really what I'm thinking here is, as an individual pirate, how does one build a ship that is robust against the enshittification which is necessarily coming?
Yeah. So One thing that might slow it down for a little bit is that right now there is still competition in what's happening. Like there are legitimate rivals for each other. And the longer you can keep a legitimate rival system in play, a sort of pantheistic approach to this stuff, or polytheistic approach to this stuff, the better, the longer before the enshittification begins, because you can
Hmm.
always go to somebody else. Your key point about enshittification was monopoly, right? Like that's the moment it really gets bad. Um, you want to So as an individual pirate, the logic is a little bit like being very flexible in how you approach these things.
Mm.
So particularly in the beginning phase, they're going to keep trying to outdo each other with better offers. You should be jumping ship to the other one whenever you get a chance for a better offer, right? That'll maximize your value in the first part of the game, right? So, um, this is so I used to walk the same way back at Oxford when I'd been drinking like every night, and I would be, it was early college, man. I was very drunk by the time I was heading home, and there were these two kebab vans on either side of the street, and I would walk down the street, and this guy over here would be like, free fries, and I'd be like, ooh, ooh, ooh. I'd start to stumble that way, and the guy across the street would yell, free fries and free drink, and I'd be like, oh, 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 and I'd start to stumble over, and they'd sort of do this, and eventually one of them would hook me close enough that they could just feed me, and that was, it wasn't like I was making a real decision. I just stopped wandering. Um, so you want that attitude of who's giving me the best option here in the early phases. The enshittification phase, there's two steps typically. There's the, or three. There's the, we're almost enshittified, right? We are enshittified. Other people have realized we're enshittified, right? So like that's the sort of three-step thing. When you get to almost enshittified, you want to get as much stuff as possible in that period. You want to just get all the value you can get real fast. Then we are enshittified. You want to be able to abstain from the enshittification. So you want to be able to, as much as possible, not get caught in the whirlpool, either because you accumulate enough resources before this to be able to wait it out, or you have improved your position enough that you're able to take away whatever the negative effects of the enshittification are. And then the everyone else has realized we're enshittified. This is the case where I think there's two players here, and you can be either one depending on which one you want, how your information, how you want to be. Make a new thing or support a new thing. So let's take for example Amazon. Okay, so most of us are to some degree or another now, because it's almost impossible to avoid, dependent on Amazon for getting things. Like it's a huge behemoth. It's almost impossible to do this. Um, so we're at some level of the enshittified, like solidly enshittified here. But people are starting to realize that it's shitty, right? People don't like certain aspects of it. They're upset about it. Um, the first thing I'm going to suggest is the dark version. The second one is the better version. So the first one is that like that means that other people though, other players in the scene have realized that people don't like what's happening. There are times if you look around, you can get stuff for cheaper, for better, for on a very, for taking a small sacrifice usually in speed, but not that much of sacrifice in speed from competitors that are not as big now. You can get it from some giant corporations. Sometimes you can find the exact same item for cheaper at Walmart if you want to go to Walmart. Do you know what I mean? Now, I'm not suggesting Walmart's great, but like you can still get your advantage because they are fighting, right? And they're fighting because they've realized there's a shitty system and they think they can pull people away. So you're back to a kind of bargaining game, but you have to be willing to do the work to do that. Um, the other one is that you can also just start creating your own networks now because people they have changed the system in a way that people can then do things with. So you want to sell stuff on Amazon, you can sell stuff on Amazon, right? You can take advantage of it that way. You can make your own private networks by realizing, like, oh, okay, There's enough people who are upset about this. I'll put a little email listserv together, right? And be like, hey, I sell my stuff at the farmers market. Like, I don't think it's a surprise that farmers markets have become even more of a thing, the easier it is to get stuff out of Amazon, right? Like people want a different kind of experience, and so you can play into that. But you may end up paying $5 for an apple, so you have to figure out what your choices are in the system. So, but in terms of the game, generally speaking, it's like play them against each other as long as they can. Be a first mover in terms of pulling out when it starts to get bad. Be able to withstand the period where you can't do anything but live with it, and then again be some kind of first mover or creator once other people realize this is shitty. Um,
Hmm. Prioritize optionality
Always, yeah,
and make sure that your pull-out game is real strong. Is that what I
yeah.
heard you say?
That's exactly what you heard me say. Everybody should be working on their pullout game. That's true. Yeah, because you never want to be the person at a party talking about how much you enjoy shopping on Amazon. That's a shitty,
Sure.
or like, you know, um, boomer groups, talking about how, still talking about Facebook and shit. You know what I mean? Like, you
Hmm.
don't want to you want to stay mentally flexible enough to be ready for whatever the next thing is and be willing to move to it. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think, you know, or again, make alternate systems. I mean, one of the weird things that Amazon enabled was this idea of direct action marketplaces being available at like to a lot of people. Like people had been doing selling directly to each other through bulletin board systems and everything else, for a long time. But that wasn't widespread in the populace, right? Like people didn't know how to. You were some kind of weird hacker if you were doing this kind of shit for a long
Hmm.
time. And now everyone's like, well, why wouldn't I use the internet to sell a thing that I have? Like what not like shipping, and shipping isn't that hard. I can figure this out. Like that's something that like small businesses were struggling to figure out 20 years ago is how do I ship stuff around the
Hmm.
country? So yeah,
Yeah. The way that I have developed the system that I've developed around this is around sort of like economics in the marketplace in general is that you need to be in assets. And so that means like you should be investing in stocks and shit like that. But more importantly, assets are things that are legitimately valuable to you.
yes,
And so you need to, it sounds like the first part of your plan there is to take advantage of the opportunity when great deals are going around for everyone. Take advantage of that and build out assets that are not dependent on the inflow of that deal.
yeah, absolutely. And then, I want to give some credit here because I do think that this is a Gordon White concept of sort of the salvage mission stuff that he's
Hmm.
talked about before too. Of like if you want to build your off-grid community of farmers and stuff, you should probably one good way to do that is to have at least one of you working some kind of crazy tech job where you you're just siphoning a ton of money out of the system and buying real property
Hmm.
because the value of having a water source doesn't get old. Like that's never going anywhere. And most people won't do that. Most people will buy what cult. So here's another thing: is having a cultural value sets.
Hmm.
And this goes back to sort of like what pattern prediction can you be in? So if everybody is like, I have to get the new phone, you know,
Hmm.
see what it's like to not. Do you know what I mean? Like to put that money into something else you enjoy. And this isn't an anti-pleasure thing at all, but it's like is what you're. It's like when everybody was smoking cigarettes, right? Like there was a lot of money put into cigarettes for a lot
Hmm.
of people, and at the time you'd be people having people like I bought a new car because I stopped smoking cigarettes. Do you know what I mean? Like I could so having a different value point than what everyone else is investing in gives you extra leverage and extra power. Um,
Hmm.
you know, um, uh, Jesse is fond of a book called Frugal Hedonism, and as a concept, I think it's a really great one. Of like, what actually gives you pleasure? What actually is worth spending on, or the
Mm.
Mitch Horowitz
Hmm.
spend for power kind of thing. Like, don't just spend or buy or participate because everyone else is participating, right? Like, and again, if you
Hmm.
want this thing, if you like this thing, then do it. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't get caught in being a robot. Don't get caught in being just in the current rather than thinking or doing what you want.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting puzzle that we will continue
Yes.
to unpack over time here. But
Yeah.
the goal of being a wizard is to be wise and
Yeah.
to do a good job. One of the things that I always say is that improving your model of the world and therefore improving your predictive capacity is what it is to be smart.
Yeah.
That is like improving your predictive capacity and being smart are the one thing. They are the same thing. And so you realize that the world is made of magic, then it gives you another angle with which to, or another dimension through which to travel the world and to improve your predictive capacity. And so, thanks for giving us some wise wizard understanding here, man. Appreciate you.
Well, happy to help. The one thing we should come back to at some point in the future is the narrative you make, right?
Mm,
Because
mm,
like that, the idea we've talked a long time as magicians and stuff that the narrative shapes the data, shapes the future, shapes what happens. I think it's just getting truer and truer all the time. So like that's something I'd like to return to at some point and do a little more of a deep dive in because I'd like to hear your thoughts on how do we make good narratives and what does it even mean to make a good narrative and how do we you know when do you have a bad one, when do you have a good one, how do you know it's working, how do you not know, like all that's it's a deep dive I'd like to get into sometime with you.
totally. Totally. Yeah. Narrative and story is the only way that I think that humans can come to understand the world. And it might be because the world is inherently narrative in its form.
Right.
There's no good way for me to prove that, but I'm rocking with it right now, and so far so good.
Yeah, it's a story I like, so yeah.
Yeah, really, and the best wine is the wine that I like, and
Exactly,
so
yes, it's 100%.
so that's what we're going with. Beautiful people, if you want to go get a geomancy reading with my man Brian Wilkins here, you should go to wilkinsbrian.com. Is that right, Brian?
That is correct. And
Do you have anything else you're offering these days?
if you get a geomancy reading, I'm working on a bit of blessing poems, sort of these sort of experiments in sort of a traditional blessing format or a historiola format, and they come along with because it's something I'm trying out and I'm having a good time with. I'm seeing good early results on, and I'd like to share it with people. So that's coming through, and there are other things I should not announce just yet, but there will be stuff
Don't
coming soon.
announce the things you should not announce.
No, I will not.
Yeah,
But there are
all
future plans.
things in
And
excellent. All
and
things in
and I
their
should also
proper time.
say, you can also like if you want to interact with me, I'm actually spending a lot more time on Substack these days. So that is a place you can get in touch with me. And if I'm really enjoying a lot of work by a lot of different people there.
What's your
Uh,
Substack handle?
that's it. You can find me through Banha, which is the one I do. Which is, and then hold on, it's me, man. You just look up Brian Wilkins, you find it. Like
Is it
there's
Brian
not a
Wilkins?
lot
Is it
of
Wilkins Brian? A lot of your shit is
I think
Wilkins
it's
Brian.
I think it's Wilkins Brian. Let me look it up. What is the spelling of my last name? No, it's DB. It's just DB.
DV, great. Yeah, sure.
DB.
Let's add another name to it.
Sure. Get everybody confused. Um, and by the way, if you are interested, folks, because I'll do it for a second, even though Zamboni's not going to be happy with me. If you're interested in learning more about the shape of things, or how things work, or how to actually like figure things out, there are courses and things on zambonifunk.com that you can check out that are very, very good, and you may purchase
Zambonifunk.com/learn is the place to do that. You can also
slash
get,
learn. You got a
yeah, yeah,
slash
yeah.
learn now? Like, dude,
I got a
that's so
slash learn. Yeah, yeah. Your boy's working it out. I am not good at my internet presence yet, but it is baby steps out here.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
working
yeah.
on it.
Cool.
and a bunch of like most of the Which Way to Wisdom course is available for free on YouTube. You don't even have to
Yep.
do any of that. So
That's
go
the
check
worst
that out.
marketing I've ever heard. So you should pay him occasionally for things he puts out there.
You
I'm
sh
just
Yeah, I
saying.
mean, look, if you want to hit up your boy's tip jar, then that'd be great. If you want to learn astrology in depth, there's a
Yeah.
strong curriculum, and there's a great course for that. Astrology from the Ground Up is the name of that. Everyone has already left. No one is still here.
No,
We're
we're gone. It's
It's
just you and
just
me.
me and Brian right now talking. Thank you, beautiful people, for being here at all. We appreciate y'all. Look forward to the next time. Peace and blessings. Give thanks to the one most high creator, Jah Rastafari.